Chapter 3. In the morning, a heavy mist has settled onto the yard, and Nathan can hardly see the bus as he heads into the clouds, zipping his jacket. His own books and Roy's are crooked in his arm. The idling motor guides him to the haze of the yellow bus. Roy straddles the driver's seat, gazing out the window at the dismal morning. He says nothing, closes the door, and turns on the headlights. The rutted road tosses Nathan from side to side on the seat. The inside of the bus is like the sky this morning, a silence condensing around every sleepy face. Everyone says good morning to Roy pleasantly, distantly. No hello is returned by Roy with any sign of hidden feeling. Nathan searches but finds no evidence of a girlfriend in these faces, but this thought hardly brings any peace. Nathan already knows Roy has a girlfriend at his church, and Roy goes out with her all the time. At school, Nathan leaves the bus with the first wave this time, letting Roy sit like a boulder. His coldness seems oddly expected, but Nathan remembers lying on their clothes in the cemetery, his hand on Roy's naked belly in the shadow of the obelisk. Roy will treat Nathan as he pleases, and Nathan expects the coldness. In the daylight, Nathan will be invisible. So at lunchtime, Nathan sits away from Roy and his friends, at a table by the southern wall windows among the black kids. He drinks his milk and chews his macaroni and cheese. His mind, as he eats, is a perfect wash, free of any stray imagining. He avoids a smoking patio, after lunch, in favor of the lawn in front of the school, sheltered by the brick sign announcing a Forrester County High School to the fields beyond. He sits in the shadow, hidden, and hums a hymn from church about the peace that passes understanding. A new friend crosses the yard beyond, Hannah from Nathan's civics class. Hannah visits briefly, asking if Nathan is ready for the test on the American Constitution next week. Yes, Nathan answers. Hannah is pimpled and pleasant and talks for a while, idle and mundane chatter, but while she is there, Roy passes. His posture radiates anxiety, hands jammed into pants pockets, shoulders rigid. He sees Nathan and stands watching. He scowls and shoves his hands deeper. Even now, even from this distance, his body draws Nathan toward it, and Nathan stands to join him. But suddenly Roy storms away, shoulders hunched, frowning. The afternoon chokes Nathan, sitting in hot, dark classrooms with windows no teacher will open. He sits through advanced math with his Venus pencil poised, paper glaring at him from the desktop. Mr. Ferret crumbles chalk against the chalkboard. When the final bell rings and everyone hurries towards the buses, Nathan walks toward his own bus with a small fear inside. Roy straddles his vinyl saddle watching the accelerator pedal on the floor, books loose in one arm. Others enter before Nathan does. He nods to them. Nathan is too far away to read Roy's expression, but when Roy sees Nathan he turns, making a production of settling his books into the basket beside the seat. Momentum carries Nathan to the back of the bus, where he sits, quietly watching the top of Roy's head in the rearview mirror. The drive home is tedious and tense at the same time. The bus a senseless rattling contraption that sends up a cloud of stinking exhaust, vapid voices, and vacant laughter. Nathan props his knees against the seat in front, glaring at the ridged rubber mat that runs the length of the aisle. No matter where he looks, he can feel Roy's sullen anger at the front of the bus. Roy scans the highway with lips set in a line. Nathan clutches his books against his stomach, remembering the softness of Roy's cheek, the taste of his mouth. The bus makes its usual stops, the bodies thinning among the seats. Soon there are only a few voices between Nathan and Roy. Again soon, Nathan sits alone in the back of the bus and Roy alone in front. Roy stares forward and Nathan stares downward, each with equal stubbornness. Roy turns the bus down the dirt road through Kennicott Woods. Nathan cannot help but watch the strong arms turn the wide steering wheel, while Roy remains oblivious and shifts gears with precise violence. But, past the first few curves of the road, he pulls the bus to the side and stops. Nathan watches in surprise. Roy sags back against his seat, arms falling limp at his side. His deep breathing is audible. I got a question for you. Nathan's voice sounds timid, small in the empty bus. When is it? What were you doing with that girl in the front of the school? Studying the back of Roy's head for a clue. The mirror is empty. Nothing. I was just sitting there and she came up. Oh, sure, Roy says. She's in my civics class. She was asking me about this test we got. What's her name? Hannah something? Do you like her? She's all right. Roy's voice trembles a little. Do you like her the way you like me? The question echoes into silence. No. Roy sits still. Nathan's heart pounds and calm is hard to find. Roy stands. He stares at the rubber mat as he walks down the aisle. He is shaking as he kneels beside Nathan's seat. I don't know if I believe you or not. I'm telling the truth. Touch me, Roy says, and Nathan embraces him. He leans against Nathan, who caresses the thick hair at the nape of his neck. He opens his shirt slowly, and Nathan feels the strong upsurge of breath and desire, same as the night before, only in the daylight the rich color of his flesh glows, blinding, and when Nathan touches the curves and planes, the sudden rush of heat engulfs them both. For Nathan, it is a moment of poise in which he must balance between what he knows and what he should not know. The fact of Roy makes a difference. Here it is easy to be held. Nathan's body has never felt so safe. They are touching each other in intimate places with a feeling of perfection. Their breaths, as they fumble and mingle, come faster. They cling and press until they finish. Nathan holds his eyes closed, aware of Roy against him, and glad of the clean, curved lines of Roy's body. Glad to lay his hands on Roy's firm shoulders and flat waist. The trembling of a vein in Roy's neck draws Nathan's fingers. The clean lines of Roy are a relief, and Nathan focuses on that. Without reason, in Nathan's inner seeing, the vision of preacher John Roberts arises, telling him how at the Last Supper John lay his head tenderly on Jesus' breast. Nathan ends that way with Roy's fingers in his hair. Roy asks, "Did you ever do this before with anybody?" Nathan shakes his head, unable to speak. He has never liked it before. That much is true. "Do you promise?" Roy asks, and the fear is plain on his face when Nathan looks at him. "I promise I never did it with anybody." Hoarse, almost inaudible, feeling hollow inside. "Because it's okay as long as it's just you and me." Roy's face is suddenly very sad. Nathan reaches for the face, pulls Roy close. Roy settles, sighing against Nathan's smaller shoulder. "I never did this much before, not even with a girl." Nathan holds him as if he has diminished. Nathan becomes the shelter, the protection. He touches Roy's chest with the tip of his tongue, and Roy shudders inside. His heart is regularly bursting. Stillness settles over the bus. Roy sighs and loops an arm around Nathan, keeping close to him through the aftermath, as the sinking sun caresses them through the windows. When they can move again, Roy leads Nathan to the front of the bus, drives home down the twisting road with the shadows of the trees passing across his shoulders. He parks the bus in the usual spot in the yard and turns in the seat. "Don't go in yet." "All right, I won't." Roy studies his own hands, gripping the steel frame of his seat, smooth nail against smooth rivet. "I can't come to see you tonight. We have a prayer meeting." "At church?" He nods. "Every Wednesday." He will not look up. "Do you like to go?" "Yeah. I have a lot of homework to do anyway. I have a test. I told you." But Roy has heard only his own thoughts. Lips parted, as if words are close, Roy glances toward his house. He leans to Nathan, kisses him quickly. Pulling on his shirt, he says he will see Nathan later and hurries away without a backward glance. The night is long and Roy moves restlessly in Nathan's thoughts. Nathan studies mathematics slowly, solving his tedious, non-algebraic problems with an indolent air. Later he walks to the pond, though not as far as the abandoned cemetery. He can see the distant outline of the tombstones against the black backdrop of trees. He has gone to bed when Roy finally arrives at home again, driving his parents' car into the yard, letting it idle a moment. Nathan leaps out of the blankets. He stands back from the window to make sure Roy cannot see him. Roy steps out of the car, illuminated by the yard light atop its creosote pole. His figure is handsome, in white shirt and tie, his face in shadow. Judging from his stance, he might be watching Nathan's window, but Nathan still hangs back, listening to the muted creakings of the house around him, the syncopated drip of water in the downstairs bathroom. Wind rattles the upstairs windows in their frames. Roy presently heads into the deeper gloom beneath the trees, walking with his mother, who moves slowly due to her size. Nathan hovers in the dark over them both. Soon a dim light burns in the bedroom above the hedge. As before, Roy's shadow slides across the visible wall. Tonight he avoids the window, and Nathan watches his shadow undress. When that room goes dark, Nathan stands dumbly before his own window, reluctant to turn. When he returns to bed, a small fear seizes him. He replays in his head every moment of Roy's arrival, his stepping out of the car, his standing in the shadow, his undressing out of sight of the window. Nathan lies in bed and examines each of these images over and over. Something in the sequence of events frightens him. Yet the following day proves to be all Nathan could have wished. In the morning, he sits in the seat behind Roy again, and on the way to school, Roy talks to him in an almost intimate way. At lunch, Roy sits with Nathan and afterward takes Nathan to the smoking patio. No friend takes precedence over Nathan, and no girl excites his attention. Only once when Nathan asks about prayer meeting does the little fear return. Roy says the meeting was fine, but refuses to look at him. All further questions about Roy's church stick in Nathan's throat. That afternoon, when Roy parks the bus under the pecan trees, he tells Nathan to hurry inside and change clothes. He wants them to go for a hike in the woods while there's still light. To an Indian mound, he says, beyond the pond and the cemetery. He grins and lets the bus motor die. The door hardly swings open before Nathan dashes for his house. In the kitchen, his mother stands at the sink, washing a cake pan and icing bowl. The room shimmers with afternoon light, filtered through red-checked curtains, adding color to her face and hands. "I'm making a coconut cake. Do you want a little piece of layer?" "No, ma'am, I'm not hungry. It's still warm out the oven. It'll be good. I'm not hungry for cake right now." This disappoints her a little, but she goes on smiling warmly. "Well, did you have a good day at school?" "Yes, ma'am." "Well, sit down and talk to me about it. What are you in such a hurry for?" "Roy wants me to change clothes and come out to the woods with him." She studies her dishes and frowns. Her glistening hands move deliberately. "What does he want you to go to the woods for?" "To see this Indian mound." "What do you want with an Indian mound?" "I never saw one before." She looks out the window. "There he is, too, waiting on you. Can I go? Is it all right?" She goes on watching Roy, her face filling with worry. "I guess you can, but I don't want you to go too far." "Yes, ma'am, I won't." "Remember, he's bigger than you are. You don't have to do everything he does." "Yes, ma'am, I know." She dries her hands and kisses Nathan's forehead without looking at him. "Put on your everyday clothes. I'll tell him you're coming." Nathan rushes upstairs, furiously erasing his mother's sadness from his mind. When, school clothes exchanged for every day, he returns to the porch, she is fussing with her plants, pinching a dead leaf off the ivory, wiping the leaves of his snake plant with a cloth. She says to be careful in the woods. Don't stay gone too long. Nathan answers, yes, ma'am, and bursts into the yard. Roy awaits beyond the hedge. The two boys run side by side through the apple orchard. The rhythm of running carries them a long way beyond the meadow. They crash through the underbrush but make no other sound. Leaves strike the skin of Nathan's arms, stinging and caressing. Roy leads him west of the pond and cemetery. He lopes deeper into the woods, glancing back to make sure Nathan is keeping up. Roy laughs at the glory of motion, a bright, incomprehensible sound that echoes through the woodland. He leaps across a narrow stream where drooping ferns make elegant green arches, and Nathan follows, light, running as if he will never tire. The forest is something other than a neighbor now. It becomes a new world. As the density of growth increases, the pace of their running slows. Soon it is easier to walk than to run, and Nathan draws abreast of Roy. Roy gives a look that instructs, that says he is pleased. The Indian mound is pretty close once they cross the creek, he says. The land is rising. Nathan climbs past bent saplings and red-leafed dogwood. Roy has run up the hill a little faster than Nathan and pauses, breathless. The forest thins and light spills onto the lower tiers of growth. Beyond a glade of trees, on a flat of land, a long mound rises. Only green grass grows on the mound, as if all other plants have been magically forbidden. Golden sunlight tumbles along the gentle slope. Roy hangs his shirt from his belt loops. When Nathan does not follow suit of his own volition, Roy reaches for his shirt buttons. The air, Roy's hands, light spilling down. Roy offers Nathan the shirt, tenderness in his expression, then runs down the long slope. Nathan threads the sleeves through the belt loops of his pants and follows. Roy vanishes momentarily, but Nathan, heart-pounding from the run, finds him. Roy is a strong silhouette against the bright mound, walking toward it. Nathan overtakes him halfway up the mound. Nathan draws near shyly, and Roy refuses to turn. Roy's back muscles shift in a rhythm that seems strong and good. The warm brown skin invites Nathan's hands, but he refuses to reach. They are still climbing. A curious fact, Roy's breath labors more than Nathan's. When on the crest of the mound, Roy turns. His ribs are beating open and closed like wings. Nathan lays his hand against the pounding in the cleft of Roy's chest. Roy watches his hand, watches Nathan. Their two fleshes are bright together, the two boys, warm like the colors of the late sky. The sun still has some descending to do, and they watch it and the clouds for a while. Roy settles along the ground, spreading out his shirt, and Nathan does the same. Soon they are layered against each other. Roy says the movement of the treetops is like the ocean. Nathan knows nothing about the ocean. He listens to the murmuring of Roy's insides, the ferocious heartbeat that shakes through them both. Roy is murmuring in Nathan's ear, a hymn from church. There is a place of quiet rest near to the heart of God. Nathan sings too, kissing Roy's soft throat, his collarbones, the underside of his chin. He can smell Roy's body. He can taste it with the tip of his tongue. Roy grips the back of Nathan's head as if he is afraid he will escape. He need not worry. Nathan knows the nakedness Roy wants and soon achieves it. Roy arches with his body toward Nathan, a curve of yearning. He lies bare in the grass with a look on his face as if Nathan is making him sing through every cell. They lie still while the sun settles into the green bath of leaves. Roy says nothing, but Nathan can feel how his spirit darkens. The banded sky begins to drain of color as they dress. Roy stands with his hands in his pockets. He calls, "Nathan," in a strangled voice, and Nathan walks close. He brings Nathan's ear to his mouth and says, "Please don't say anything about this to anybody, okay? Please." "I won't." For a moment, just a little, Nathan is afraid. Roy has frozen with one leg in his pants, the other not. "Is something wrong?" "You just can't say anything about it, that's all." A bitter whiteness sheathing his expression. "It's near dark, we better get home." But even then they linger in the forest. At first Roy holds Nathan's hand, but later is ashamed or shy. Yet he refuses to hurry, walking slowly, never straying far. He brags that he knows all the land around his father's farm. He could find his way home in the pitch dark if he had to. Soon Nathan glimpses the cemetery through the trees, and then the pond, and they are walking along the tangled shore within sight of the backs of both houses. They slow their walking even more, and each reaches for ways to manage nearness to the other without seeming responsible for it. In the back of the barn, Roy takes Nathan next to him, again furiously, as if the act makes him angry. "You can't do this with anybody but me. Do you hear what I'm telling you?" Nathan's heart suddenly batters at them both. "I don't want to do it with anybody else." "Just remember." Red-faced, Roy is already rushing toward his house. Nathan wanders toward his own kitchen, hearing the sounds that indicate supper heading to the table. Already he is calculating the turns of the cycle, that tonight he will not see Roy, that tomorrow Roy will not say much on the bus. None of that makes him afraid exactly. Nathan has no words for what does make him afraid. But he feels the chill of it as he descends into the house where his mother has prepared a meal carefully but will hardly look him in the eye, where his father brings the Bible and a tumbler of whiskey to the dinner table, mumbling verses under his breath as he takes his seat. In the submersion of home, Nathan returns again and again to the image of Roy's body on the Indian mound, lost and bewildered under the power of Nathan's mouth.